my Woken people? This is your homie Woken Joe, and guess who? Yep, another Gotham story, another Gotham documentary, 1919 to 39, and this one's about the Riddler. So let's check this video out, alright? And let's see what he got to do back in this documentary time, alright? Alright, let's check it out. The Batfeed. Giant Panda King. That's the creator of the book that the story is based on. So check it out, alright? Viewer discretion is advised. Dum dum dum. Riddle me this, riddle me that.
Me this. What do liars do after death?
I don't know.
This question, among many others, marked the reign of terror that plagued Gotham for many years. Questions that stumped police, confused the general public, and led to the murders of numerous people. Questions that could only seemingly be answered by Batman.
Yeah, boy.
These questions cropped up from 1925 to 1928 and came from one man, Edward Nygma, or as he was better known, the Riddler. Due to recent acquisition of the police files pertaining to the Riddler's activity, we now know more to the story of this deranged criminal.
Like a Zodiac killer.
Born into a family of good standing and comfortable assets, he was an only child who was the pride of his mother, socialite, and his father, one of Gotham's most sought-after attorneys. From a very young age, everyone could see that Edward was special. He was much more aware of the goings-on of the world than other children his age. This awareness soon matured into what really made him unique, his intellect.
They look like they're from Georgia. You know what's funny? They that the mom and dad and the way he looks, it kind of looks like he'd be related to Doc Holliday from Tombstone. Val Kilmer. Ah, shit. I'm a Huckleberry. Because he looks like that.
With the gift that was his intelligence also came a curse. He found that he would often be bored by many of his friends and family. Edward became obsessed with riddles and puzzles, anything that would help him with his ever-present boredom, chasing the thrill of and always seeking the next challenge to overcome. His parents spent their many resources in fostering Edward's gift, even though they may not have understood his fascination with the riddles or games, as he called them.
That's right.
But they did see it as a way to focus his talents. Edward enjoyed these puzzles not just for the challenge. He also loved to flaunt his self-described intellectual superiority to people whom he considered to be beneath him. Edward's hubris was on par with his intelligence. His mind was sharp, and so was his interaction with others, as he had no patience to suffer fools.
That's pretty dope.
When he grew into young adulthood, his parents sent him to Gotham University to follow in his father's footsteps and study law. It was there that he was introduced to the ideas of German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Soon, Edward became obsessed with Nietzsche's philosophical theory of the Übermensch. This theory stated that if one was transcendent beyond normal levels of consciousness, like one such as Edward Nygma considered himself to be, they were exempt from the normal morals that influence the average man.
Nietzsche's Übermensch theory is a fascinating concept when you think about it. On one hand, you have the idea that one can aspire to be more than the outdated moral values that they're made out to be, to transcend average humanity, as it were. On the other hand, you have someone like Edward Nygma, who saw this as an excuse to commit the gruesome murders that he did and chalk it up to being above society's morals. While the city of Metropolis had their Superman, Gotham had the Riddler.
How you gonna compare the Riddler I don't care what timeline, okay? I don't care what through history. How are you gonna compare the Riddler to Superman? Superman's not smart, but at the same time, the Riddler ain't no Superman. Okay. That's funny.
What Edward took this to mean was he was exempt from the average morality of society due to his advanced intellect and his station in life. Using his knowledge of the law system, he strove to contrive the perfect crime.
That's
He
smart.
would commit murder and get away with it. And he had the perfect victims in mind.
Ooh.
A classmate who consistently annoyed him with his ineptitude, and his intellectual rival in the class. One to kill, one to frame.
Okay.
He spent a great deal of time poring over the details of his plan. What day, what time, what setting. Nigma knew that in certain instances one could leave absolutely no trace of oneself at a crime scene. The evidence had to be indisputable. Then the day finally arrived. He executed his plan quickly and suddenly so that he could utilize the element of surprise, and murdered the classmate that annoyed him using a knife. The knife belonged to his rival classmate and was a family heirloom.
Damn.
He left this at the scene of the crime so that there would be no doubt who the supposed perpetrator was. He then planted one of the victim's belongings in his rival's jacket, an handkerchief belonging to the victim, covered in fresh blood. When police arrived at the scene of the crime, linking the knife to Nigma's classmate, they immediately took him into custody and searched his things, finding the item belonging to the victim. The innocent man was locked away, and Edward Nigma walked free.
Smart guys.
The thrill of the idea Edward experienced during the planning and execution of the crime was soon over. A new feeling of disappointment crept in, as the crime was all too easy. As the years went on, he graduated from Gotham University and became a very successful lawyer, with no one the wiser as to the atrocity he had committed. While he was successful,
So he kills the guy, one guy, frames the other, and he ends up doing law school. That's actually pretty smart. If you want to be a criminal, you gotta know the laws, right? Alright.
he began to realize that he was also very bored. The life of a lawyer had become dull to him, and he yearned for excitement again.
Yeah, I imagine.
His mind constantly went back to the perfect crime he had committed in college, and his mind reached an inevitable conclusion. He was to begin killing again.
His mom and dad?
With each person he killed, his flair increased and his ambition grew. By the time he had murdered 8 people, the police still had no clue who was behind the killing spree. His balance of criminal activity and work were fairly even, although Edward alienated himself from his family, and he took no romantic interests.
I knew it.
He didn't find his parents intellectually stimulating enough, and romance was not an option for such a self-obsessed man as he. He eventually found his way back home, murdering his parents. They had been an obstacle to his ascent, and so it only seemed fitting to remove that obstacle from his path.
Crazy.
Never mind that they were the people that raised him.
I knew it. I knew it.
His ambition and confidence increased to the point that he taunted the police by leaving riddles, questions.
I'll tell you this right now. If you look throughout history, anybody that was very, very intelligent and smart, that was abusive and a loner and all that stuff, they end up killing their parents because what he just said about how there was no attraction, there was no communication, there was nothing of that smart person that he didn't want nothing to do with them. You know what I mean? And the way he was treated and all that, why would he want to put up with him? Well, that's crazy. I called it. Y'all don't be thinking. I'll be listening.
At the scene of the crime, he would leave clues as to his identity and information, but the police were not trained for this type of criminal and struggled to solve them. Commissioner James Gordon enlisted the help of the Batman in taking on these riddles. It was one of the first times that Gotham's police
Is that Jim Gordon? Ah! Hey, my bad. Which guy had to sign in a truck? Damn, that's crazy. That's Jim Gordon. He was like an old president that's just pissed off because he didn't go on his second term.
Collaborated with the vigilante, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. One by one, the Batman solved Enigma's riddles, and the trail inevitably led back to Edward.
Big ass hole.
Once they had the true identity of the Riddler, it didn't take long to track him down and lock him up.
So, you want to know about my uncle, Uncle Bullock? Yeah.
This fool.
Well, the year was 1920 something. And Uncle Bullock, oh man, Uncle Bullock and the JCPD, let me tell you, they were at their wits' end with this guy. They called himself the Riddler. Yeah, the Riddler. Because after riddle after riddle, it was like some sort of, I don't know, a gimmick. Everybody got a gimmick. And there was no end in sight to the killings or even the madness. It made them desperate, you know. It made them desperate, even desperate enough to turn to the guy they'd also been hunting not that long ago, the Batman. Yeah, and the Batman he was getting results, and so they brought him in. It was like a new chapter in Gotham City Police Department, and they were beginning to turn things around, you know. It just started turning just like that, and it ended up helping, you know, them in the end. But between you and me, the guy's nuts.
Baby.
YouTube Premium.
Edward would have no such thing being said about him. His crimes should be studied as examples of perfection. He chose to dismiss his defense team and represent himself. If the evidence was not so overwhelming, he may have had a chance, but Edward was handed a life sentence at Blackgate Federal Penitentiary.
He was in Alcatraz.
Located on a solvated island in Gotham Bay, the remote location and harsh environment that surrounded it made escaping not an option.
Scary walking down that hallway.
See, Arkham Asylum was meant for the criminally insane, the ones that society had cast out. But when all these super criminals began to appear in Gotham, the city realized that Arkham just wasn't enough. Blackgate was retrofitted with everything it would need to house special case criminals like Victor Freeze, Kirk Langstrom, Waylon Jones, to name a few. It only made sense that someone like Edward Nygma would end up there. Blackgate had the facilities to contain a man whose intellect was so sharp that he would escape any normal prison.
True. I believe that. How smart he is.
After many years of incarceration, Edward Nygma had become extremely agitated and bored. He was slightly relieved by his responsibilities of being caretaker of the penitentiary library, but he was still cursed by his own mind. Eventually, the agitation gave way to compliance. When Tim Drake, or Red Wing as he was now known in the crime-fighting world, came to a dead end in his investigation of the sequence killer, Victor Zars,
what the fuck?
Tim had the idea to interview Nygma. He hoped this would give him insight into what
Just to let you know, that's the third Robin, okay? Just to let you know.
Made thrill murderers like him tick. The Riddler, now much more amicable due to the years behind bars, readily cooperated. Tim was not prepared for the games the Riddler would play with him. Edward did help, of course, in the capture of Mr. Zars, but he used the relationship with Tim as an opportunity to attempt an escape. It was thwarted at the last minute by the Red Wing and the Spoiler.
Spoiler? Who's that?
The interaction was not wasted. It was an early attempt at what eventually became criminal profiling. Tim Drake utilized this technique and pioneered it for a new generation of law enforcement during his career later in life with the FBI.
Oh, what? Okay.
Edward Nygma lived out his days in Blackgate. Even though he was compliant with his imprisonment now, he still resented the guards and hated the Batman for putting him there. He may have been resigned to his fate, but he would never forget the one who was responsible for it.
The Batman.
His idea of the perfect crime was not as perfect as he would have liked to believe, and his self-proclaimed genius and moral recuse were ambiguous at best. The Batman was able to see through his trickery and put an end to the reign of the Riddler. While the Riddler hated the Batman, he also had a grudging respect for the vigilante. The Bat had bested him intellectually, and that truth haunted Nigma and seeded doubt in his own mind about his beliefs and philosophies.
Batman!
Riddler died in Blackgate many years later, and no one mourned for his death, as he had alienated himself from society by claiming to be intellectually superior. His parents were dead by his own hands. He had no family or friends to speak of. When he died alone. The Riddler's reign was over. What do liars do after death?
They lie still.
They lie still.
Ah! And that is a riddle. And I see what I see. To me, darkness is clear as daylight. What am I? Blind as a bat. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about this. I really like this one. It's crazy how he killed his parents. But yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Booyah!